He married his peace, then killed her with 6 bullets. She was my beginning, and I became her end. Those were the only words Malik Carter said when detectives asked him why he shot his wife. 2 days into their honeymoon. 6 bullets. 1 body. A cabin in the mountains soaked with blood, silence, and a folded note clenched in her dying hand. She wasn't cheating. She wasn't leaving him. She hadn't hurt him. At least not in the way people think. So why would a man who spent years chasing peace, who stood at the altar trembling with joy just 48 hours earlier, pull a gun on the woman who made him believe he could be whole again? He didn't say, "She lied." He didn't say, "She tricked me." He just whispered, "She used to be my best friend." It was a quiet January morning in the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina when the 911 call came in. A neighbor, walking her dog through the pine trails behind a secluded rental cabin, heard what she thought were fireworks. 6 rapid pops. Chirp. Final. Then nothing. By the time Officer Hayes arrived, smoke still curled from the chimney. The cabin door was unlocked. And inside, past the hallway and kitchen counter, he saw the man on the floor, knees bloody, hands trembling, his coat zipped halfway, a pistol on the ground a few feet away. A woman lay slumped against the cabinets, her white dress soaked crimson. The scene was horrifying in its stillness. And in the midst of that horror, Malik Carter said just one thing. "She used to be my best friend." The headlines erupted. Trans bride gunned down by husband on honeymoon. From vows to violence, North Carolina's most shocking murder case. Lies, love, and identity, what drove Malik Carter to kill his wife? But behind the headlines was a deeper story. One that couldn't be explained in a headline or compressed into a 90-second TV segment. A story that stretched back decades. Back to high school. Back to trauma. Back to 2 kids trying to survive a world that refused to make room for softness. The Before the gun, there was a church. Before the blood, there was a kiss. Before the screaming, there was laughter and Luther Vandross playing from a Bluetooth speaker in a church hall lit with string lights and folding chairs. Malik Carter had never believed in second chances. But on that day, standing beneath the stained glass window at Mount Calvary Baptist in Charlotte, North Carolina, he looked like a man who had finally stopped running. His bride, Isabel Monroe, was radiant. Soft brown curls. A gentle smile. A calm that seemed to seep into every room she entered. Her eyes were honey-colored and held something deeper than joy, acceptance. Like she had known pain and had chosen love anyway. There were only 30 people at the ceremony. Mostly Malik's friends. Isabel didn't have family present. She'd told him early on that she had lost touch with them. Complicated history, she'd said. Distant states. No one to invite. Malik didn't push. He had his own fractured past. And he understood that some silences were survival. He married his peace. Then killed her with 6 bullets. She was my beginning, and I became her end. Those were the only words Malik Carter said when detectives asked him why he shot his wife. 2 days into their honeymoon. 6 bullets. 1 body. A cabin in the mountains soaked with blood, silence, and a folded note clenched in her dying hand. She wasn't cheating. She wasn't leaving him. She hadn't hurt him. At least not in the way people think. So why would a man who spent years chasing peace, who stood at the altar trembling with joy just 48 hours earlier, pull a gun on the woman who made him believe he could be whole again? He didn't say, "She lied." He didn't say, "She tricked me." He just whispered, "She used to be my best friend." It was a quiet January morning in the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina when the 911 call came in. A neighbor, walking her dog through the pine trails behind a secluded rental cabin, heard what she thought were fireworks. 6 rapid pops. Chirp. Final. Then nothing. By the time Officer Hayes arrived, smoke still curled from the chimney. The cabin door was unlocked. And inside, past the hallway and kitchen counter, he saw the man on the floor, knees bloody, hands trembling, his coat zipped halfway, a pistol on the ground a few feet away. A woman lay slumped against the cabinets, her white dress soaked crimson. The scene was horrifying in its stillness. And in the midst of that horror, Malik Carter said just one thing. She used to be my best friend. The headlines erupted. Trans bride gunned down by husband on honeymoon. From vows to violence, North Carolina's most shocking murder case. Lies, love, and identity, what drove Malik Carter to kill his wife? But behind the headlines was a deeper story. One that couldn't be explained in a headline or compressed into a 90-second TV segment. A story that stretched back decades. Back to high school. Back to trauma. Back to 2 kids trying to survive a world that refused to make room for softness. The Before the gun, there was a church. Before the blood, there was a kiss. Before the screaming, there was laughter and Luther Vandross playing from a Bluetooth speaker in a church hall lit with string lights and folding chairs. Malik Carter had never believed in second chances. But on that day, standing beneath the stained glass window at Mount Calvary Baptist in Charlotte, North Carolina, he looked like a man who had finally stopped running. His bride, Isabel Monroe, was radiant. Soft brown curls. A gentle smile. A calm that seemed to seep into every room she entered. Her eyes were honey-colored and held something deeper than joy, acceptance. Like she had known pain too, and had chosen love anyway. There were only 30 people at the ceremony. Mostly Malik's friends. Isabel didn't have family present. She'd told him early on that she had lost touch with them. Complicated history, she'd said. Distant states. No one to invite. Malik didn't push. He had his own fractured past. And he understood that some silences were survival. They said their vows. They danced. They held hands over catfish and cornbread. He kissed her forehead as his best friend Marcus toasted. Malik finally found someone patient enough to deal with his stubborn ass. Everyone laughed. Even Isabel. But in that laughter, there was something hidden. A tightness behind her smile. A flicker in her eyes when someone asked where she grew up. They said their vows. They danced. They held hands over catfish and cornbread. He kissed her forehead as his best friend Marcus toasted. Malik finally found someone patient enough to deal with his stubborn ass. Everyone laughed. Even Isabel. But in that laughter, there was something hidden. A tightness behind her smile. A flicker in her eyes when someone asked where she grew up. Malik saw it, but ignored it. He didn't want to question love again. Not this time. Two days later, that flicker would become a flood. They were in a small honeymoon cabin, just outside Asheville. Wooden walls. A fireplace. Bourbon in the cabinet. Isabel had planned every detail. Right down to the snacks, his favorite hoodie, and the playlist they'd listened to while watching snow fall outside the window. But when a black leather journal slipped from her suitcase, and Malik opened it without thinking, everything changed. On the inside page was a name, Julian I. Harris. Written in a handwriting he hadn't seen in decades. But instantly recognized. Julian Harris. His best friend from high school. The one who vanished the summer before graduation. The one who saw through every wall Malik ever built. The one who knew every bruise, every secret. The only person who ever made him feel like he wasn't alone in the world. The realization didn't come with thunder. It came with silence. Heavy. Suffocating. He didn't confront her that night. He didn't scream or accuse. But everything inside him twisted. His memories, his beliefs, his sense of identity. It all began to crack beneath the surface. By morning, the man who had kissed her hand and called her my peace was gone. What replaced him was confusion, shame, grief, and a kind of rage he didn't know he carried. And that rage, it wasn't just about the secret she kept. It was about what that secret made him question in himself. This isn't just a story of murder. It's a story about a man raised to believe love has rules. That real men never lose control. That feelings are weakness. That softness is shameful. But when Malik Carter looked into the eyes of the woman he loved, and saw the face of the boy he once called brother, he didn't know how to survive the truth. So instead, he killed it. Peace isn't always quiet. Sometimes it hides behind the loudest pain. Before the murder, before the wedding, before the cabin floor ran red with blood, there was a boy named Malik Carter, born and raised on the south side of Charlotte, North Carolina, in a neighborhood that taught him early how to keep his feelings buried and his fists ready. He was the middle child of 5, raised mostly by his mother. His father was around, but only enough to leave scars. Malik learned to read silence like survival. He knew what nights to stay quiet. What look in his father's eye meant it was better to sleep in the bathtub than risk the living room. By 13, Malik stopped crying. By 15, he stopped trusting. By 17, he had already buried 2 friends. But in the middle of all that noise and violence, there was one person who offered him something that felt like safety. Julian Harris. Quiet, smart, creative, different. Julian didn't play ball. He didn't chase girls. He didn't fight. He watched. Julian saw the world in layers. He listened in a way that made people uncomfortable. Made Malik uncomfortable too, at first. But eventually, Malik stopped trying to hide from him. Because Julian didn't ask questions like a therapist. He just stayed. They'd skip class and sit on the roof of the old library, eating hot chips, trading stories, watching clouds. Malik never told anyone, but Julian was the only one who knew the whole truth about the bruises, the shame, the fear. And for some reason, Julian never looked at him like he was broken. He looked at him like he was worth staying for. Then But one night, just weeks before graduation, Julian disappeared. No warning. No goodbye. One day he was there, drawing in his sketchbook, making dumb jokes about Malik's crooked smile. And the next day, Malik asked around, but no one knew. Some said Julian moved to Atlanta. Others said he was sent somewhere. One kid claimed he saw him in the mall, wearing eyeliner and a long black coat. But there were no answers. No closure. So Malik buried it. Buried Julian, just like he buried everything else. He graduated. Got a job fixing cars. Got married young. Divorced by 30. Spent the next decade in silence, drifting between shifts at the garage and cheap whiskey on his porch. Then one day Isabel Monroe walked into his life. She wasn't flashy. She wasn't loud. She had the kind of presence that made people lean in instead of look twice. She was warm, composed. She worked at a skincare spa, helped people feel beautiful again. But there was something about the way she moved, like every step had been earned. She laughed with intention. And when she listened, she really listened. Malik met her at a gas station on a rainy Thursday. He was fumbling with his card. She smiled and said, "Looks like the machine's pickier than me." He laughed. For the first time in months. 2 weeks later, they went for coffee. 6 months later, they moved in together. By then, Malik was already in love. But love, for Malik, had always come with rules. Unspoken ones. Taught by men who never hugged, never cried. Taught by fathers who only touched their sons when it was time to discipline. So when Isabel said things like, "I want to be seen fully, not just loved," he didn't always understand. But he tried. She didn't talk about her past much. Said she had a complicated family. Malik didn't push. He liked that she didn't demand too much of him. Didn't ask about the scars on his arms. Didn't try to fix him. She just held his hand. He thought that was enough. When he proposed, she cried. Not loud. Not messy. Just tears slipping down her cheek like she had been waiting for someone to finally see her as enough. They planned a small wedding. Just close friends. No family on her side. Malik didn't ask why. He thought love didn't need a backstory. Just a beginning. And in the chapel, beneath the blue light of stained glass, Isabel whispered her vows. "I promise to love you without masks. Without fear. With all that I am." Malik thought it was poetry. A metaphor. A woman who had also been through things, like him. He never imagined how literal her words were. Their wedding night was simple. Fried catfish. Sweetie. Old Luther Vandross playing on a borrowed Bluetooth speaker. Malik laughed harder than he had in years. When his best friend Marcus toasted, Malik finally found someone who makes his heart soft. Isabel blushed. But there was a flicker in her eyes. When someone asked where she was from. When the pastor said, "New beginnings." It was subtle. But it was there. And Malik, he saw it. But he ignored it. Because that's what Malik had always done with fear. He swallowed it. But fear isn't gone just because you won't name it. Sometimes it just waits. Waits for the right moment. The right name. The right notebook to fall open at the wrong time. And when it does, even the man who thought he had found peace might discover he was never at peace at all. Sometimes the past doesn't knock. It just slips quietly into your suitcase. Their honeymoon cabin looked like something out of a catalog. Wood-paneled walls. A stone fireplace. Snow resting softly on the windowsills. It smelled like pine, cinnamon, and fresh coffee. Isabel Monroe had planned everything down to the smallest detail. Malik noticed that on their first night there, she'd packed his favorite bourbon. Stocked the fridge with turkey bacon instead of pork. Even remembered he always slept with the fan on, even in winter. She was attentive in ways he didn't expect. Always one step ahead. Always watching him with the kind of softness that made it hard for him to remember why he ever doubted love. They had made love the night before. Slowly. Gently. The kind of love that felt less like desire and more like a promise. Afterward, she curled into his chest and whispered, "Whatever we face, I won't walk away. I'm here. Fully. Completely." Malik remembered smiling, whispering back, "I believe you." He meant it. Until the next morning. It happened while unpacking. He was moving Isabel's bag from the bed to the dresser when a small leather-bound notebook slipped out from the front pocket. It wasn't locked. Wasn't hidden. Malik picked it up casually. He didn't mean to open it. He never snooped. Never liked that feeling of crossing a line. But the cover was unmarked, and something about it, the weight, the age, made his thumb slide across the edge. And before he knew it, the first page flipped open. It was handwritten. Cursive. And at the top, Julian F. Harris. The name hit his brain like a slow earthquake. Not loud. Not violent. Just deep. His stomach tightened. His hands suddenly felt foreign. He read it again. Julian Harris. The name he hadn't spoken aloud in more than 20 years. His best friend. His shadow. His secret keeper. The boy who used to sit with him on the rooftop of the library after school, sketching his face like it held meaning. The boy who disappeared the summer before senior year. Gone without goodbye. Malik stood there frozen, notebook in hand. The penmanship was too familiar. The slant of the J, the loop in the H. He remembered that handwriting, on old birthday cards, in the corners of torn sketchpads, on the back of math quizzes they passed during class. This couldn't be a coincidence. He heard footsteps. Isabel walked back into the room, towel around her neck, hair slightly damp from the shower. She was smiling, but it faltered when she saw the notebook in his hand. "What's that?" she asked, voice calm. Malik hesitated, then offered it forward like a question. It fell out. "I think it's one of your journals." She looked at it for a second longer than necessary. Then smiled. Controlled. "Thanks," she said, and placed it into the drawer of the nightstand without opening it. No panic. No denial. Just quiet. He didn't ask. Not then. Not because he trusted her, but because he didn't trust himself to survive the answer. That night, as Isabel fell asleep next to him, Malik lay awake staring at the ceiling fan as it spun in slow, hypnotic circles. He couldn't stop thinking about that name. Julian. He whispered it in his mind the way you whisper to a ghost. Like if you say it too loud, it might answer. And it did. In memories. "1997. Senior year. Julian Harris, skinny kid with big eyes and quiet courage. Never spoke unless he had something to say. Watched the world like it was a puzzle he'd already solved. Everyone called him weird. Malik called him real. They talked about music, the future, how to escape the city. Julian once asked, 'You ever wish you were someone else? Someone people could actually see without judging?' Malik hadn't known how to respond back then. He just nodded and changed the subject. Weeks later, Julian vanished. No explanation. Rumors flew. But Malik always remembered that question. He never had the courage to ask why Julian asked it. 1997. Now, as he turned toward the woman sleeping next to him, with the same slope in her nose, the same jawline, the same way of curling into herself while sleeping, he couldn't ignore it anymore. This wasn't suspicion. This wasn't paranoia. This was recognition. He got up from bed, walked to the bathroom, splashed cold water on his face, looked into the mirror and saw a man he didn't recognize. A man on the edge of something too big to name. When he returned to the room, he opened the drawer where she had placed the notebook. It was gone. That's when he knew. Whatever truth lay in that journal, she was protecting it. From him. Or from herself. He laid back in bed beside her, his body still. A storm. Because if Isabel Monroe had once been Julian Harris, then he had just married the only person who ever truly knew him, and never told him who they really were. You ever love someone so deeply that the truth feels like betrayal just for existing? The third morning of their honeymoon began with silence. Not the comfortable kind. Not the let's sleep in and stay under the covers kind. No music. No coffee. No casual touch across the shoulder. Just stillness. Isabel was in the kitchen, moving softly. She poured coffee into 2 mugs, added hazelnut creamer to 1, 2 sugars. Malik's favorite. She placed it gently on the table near the window. He didn't touch it. He stood near the glass, arms crossed, staring at the pine trees like they held the answer to a question he wasn't ready to ask. "You've been quiet all morning," Isabel said gently. "Is something wrong?" Malik didn't move. She came closer, placed a hand on his arm. The warmth made him flinch. "Darius," she said. Turned. Not angry. Not broken. Just hollow. "I have a question," he said. "And I need the truth." She blinked. Hesitated. "Okay." Malik reached into his pocket. Pulled out the notebook. The one she thought was gone. Held it up like a weapon forged from memory. Julian Isaiah Harris. Who is that? Time didn't stop. But it slowed. Just enough for the weight of the moment to drop like a body. Isabel's lips parted. Her breath caught. She didn't run. Didn't deny. She sat down on the edge of the couch, hands trembling in her lap. And then she said it. "I was going to tell you. I didn't know how." Malik's heart beat like a drum inside his throat. "Tell me what?" Her eyes didn't waver. "That I used to be him. It was me." The air collapsed. It didn't come with an explosion. It came with a whisper that swallowed the world. Malik stared at her. But the face in front of him kept shifting, between the woman he had married and the boy he once sat beside on rooftops, eating chips, talking about dreams. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, voice low. "I wanted to," she said. "So many times. But every time I tried, I saw the way you looked at me. Like I was your piece. Your second chance. So you lied." "No," she said. "I just waited." "You waited until I found the truth myself. That's not waiting. That's hiding." Malik stood, paced the room. Every footstep echoed louder than her voice. She didn't cry. Not yet. "I didn't change," Isabel whispered. "Just my truth is more complicated than most." Malik turned sharply. "You were my best friend," he snapped. "You knew everything about me. My pain. My life. And you let me stand in front of God and say vows, without knowing the most important thing about you. It wasn't about deception," she said. "It was about survival." She unfolded slowly, revealing pieces of a history Malik never knew existed. How she had left town in silence. How her aunt took her in. How hormones and surgeries and shame had shaped every step forward. How it took her years to stop being afraid of her own voice. How, the day she saw Malik again at a grocery store in Charlotte, he smiled at her like nothing had changed. "That smile woke something up in me," she said. "Something I thought had died when Julian disappeared." "That wasn't fate," Malik hissed. "That was manipulation." Isabel stepped toward him, voice trembling. "Do you really believe that? That everything we shared was fake?" Malik didn't answer. Because the truth was, he didn't know. He didn't know what was real anymore. That night, they didn't sleep in the same bed. Isabel curled on the couch. Malik sat in the dark of the bedroom, gun case open beside him. Glock 19. Registered. Legal. Meant for protection. But that night, he didn't feel like the one in danger. He read the journal cover to cover. Old poems. Sketches. A drawing of him at 17. Underneath it, a line in delicate handwriting. "You were always my reason to keep going." He closed the journal, set it aside, and stared at the wall until sunrise. Outside, the cabin looked peaceful. Inside, two people sat in different rooms, breathing the same air, carrying different kinds of grief. One grieving what they'd hidden, the other grieving who they thought they'd known. And in the cold silence of that cabin, Malik Carter started to wonder, if the love of your life turns out to be someone you never expected, does that make the love any less true? Or just the man who couldn't hold it? I didn't kill her because she lied. I killed her because the truth shattered me. It didn't happen in a scream. It happened in a silence so heavy, it suffocated every word that tried to live between them. That morning, Isabel made coffee again. Just like always. Hazelnut creamer. 2 sugars. She placed it in front of Malik without a word. He stared at it like it was poison. She sat across from him, wearing his favorite cardigan. But nothing about her felt familiar anymore. Not to him. Not to the man who had spent 2 decades burying the past. Only to have it show up in a white dress and call it self-love. Can we talk? Isabel said, her voice gentle. Really talk. Malik didn't look at her. Didn't blink. Didn't breathe like a man anymore. Was this your plan? He asked, voice tight. To find me? Marry me? What? Trap me? Isabel shook her head, tears already forming. It wasn't like that. I swear to God. Then what was it, Isabel? You knew exactly who I was. You knew what I believed in. What I'd been through. And you still stood in front of me like it was all real. She clutched the mug, hands trembling. It was real. Every part of it. I wanted to be seen. As me. Not Julian. Not anyone else. Didn't Malik stood slowly. Not in a rush. Not out of anger. Just like he had made a decision. He walked to the bedroom. Opened the drawer. Removed a black lockbox. Entered the code. Inside, his Glock 19. Registered. Legal. Meant for safety. That day, it became a sentence. He sat on the edge of the bed, gun in his lap, journal beside him. He didn't cry. Didn't shake. He just stared. At the barrel. At the paper. At the ring on his finger that now felt like a lie wrapped in gold. Later, he would say he didn't plan it. That it just happened. But the way he moved said otherwise. Measured. Deliberate. He entered the kitchen. Isabel looked up. You made coffee, she whispered as if surprised. He nodded. With the creamer you like. She smiled faintly, confused, hopeful. But that hope died the moment he pulled the gun from beneath his coat. Malik, she said, voice cracking. Please. He didn't raise it immediately. He just looked at her like he was trying to memorize what she looked like before she disappeared forever. I loved you, he said. I trusted you. I gave you everything I had left. I didn't lie to hurt you, she pleaded. I lied because I was afraid. Because I didn't think you'd love me if you knew. He stared at her. You were right. Bang. The first bullet hit her in the shoulder. She fell against the table, crying out in pain. Bang. Her ribs. She gasped. Blood sprayed against the wall. Bang. Her thigh. She screamed, crawling away. Bang. Her stomach. Bang. Her chest. She choked on her own breath, reaching for him, not to stop him. Just to touch him. One last time. Bang. The final shot. Through the heart. Then silence. Only the tick of the clock. The soft hum of the fridge. And Malik's breath. Shallow, uneven. He dropped the gun. It clattered against the floor. Dropped to his knees. Cradled her body. Her blood soaked into his shirt. Into his skin. Into everything he thought he was. I'm sorry, he whispered. God, I'm sorry. But she couldn't hear him. Not anymore. In her clenched hand, he noticed a slip of paper. He pried it open with shaking fingers. I forgive you. Even if you never forgive me. That broke him more than the truth ever did. He wept, not like a man, not like a killer, but like a child who had finally lost the only person who ever made him feel seen. He rocked back and forth, her body in his arms, murmured the same word again and again, like a prayer swallowed by blood. Forgive me. Forgive me. Outside, a neighbor was already dialing 911. Inside, Malik Carter sat on the kitchen floor, next to the woman he loved, next to the truth he couldn't accept, next to the cost of his silence. It wasn't just a murder. It was a mirror, and no one liked what they saw in the reflection. The 911 call came in at 7:42 a.m. I heard 6 gunshots. Not fireworks. They were too sharp. Too exact. Officer Marlon Hayes was the first to arrive. 13 years on the force. He knew the difference between chaos and calculation. When he entered the cabin, he didn't find a man panicking. He found Malik Carter sitting on the floor, calm, still, and soaked in blood. The gun lay 3 feet away. Isabel's body was crumpled beside the cabinets. Her wedding ring still on. Her hands still clutching the note. Malik looked up and said only one thing. She's gone. The arrest was quiet. No resistance. No yelling. As they cuffed him, Malik looked down at his hands like they didn't belong to him anymore. The At the county jail, he refused a lawyer for the first 24 hours. Didn't eat, didn't speak, didn't ask if Isabel had survived. It was Detective Lisa Rayner who finally got through. A woman in her late 40s, steady eyes, no theatrics. She sat across from Malik and said nothing for 10 minutes. Let the silence do its job. Eventually he broke. She wasn't who she said she was. Rayner didn't blink. Who did she say she was? Isabel. But before that, she was Julian Harris, my best friend from high school. Rayner leaned forward. And that's why you killed her? Malik's eyes welled. But not with rage. She took something from me. Trust. My identity. I didn't know who I was anymore. The statement was recorded, and with it, the prosecution began building their case. The evidence: a licensed Glock 19 with Malik's fingerprints, 6 spent shell casings, a handwritten note in the victim's hand. I forgive you, even if you never forgive me. The wedding photo, Malik smiling, Isabel holding his hand, looking at him like he was everything. The journal, with sketches, memories, and a drawing of Malik at 17. The charges: first-degree murder, use of a firearm in the commission of a felony. The DA moved fast. They knew this would be a media bombshell. The headlines: Trans bride gunned down by husband in honeymoon horror. Love, lies, and gender. The Malik Carter trial. Was it deception or a hate crime? The story fractured the public. One side saw Malik as a monster, a man who killed a woman for daring to be herself. The other saw him as a victim of betrayal, a man pushed past the brink by a truth hidden too long. But no matter the spin, Isabel Monroe was dead, and Malik Carter pulled the trigger. The trial. The courtroom was packed, not with family, but with activists, journalists, law students, and people who just wanted to witness history. The prosecution was sharp, cold, and surgical. They showed the photos, played the 911 call, presented the forensic report, 6 bullets. No struggle, no forced entry, point-blank execution. The DA's opening words: this wasn't a crime of passion. This was control. Mr. Carter didn't discover a secret. He discovered that love requires acceptance, and instead, he chose annihilation. The defense. Malik's attorney, Martin Kellerman, didn't deny the killing, but he told a different story. A story about masculinity, trauma, and a man raised to believe that love has limits. He argued that Malik experienced an identity collapse, a psychological fracture caused by suppressed shame and a truth too heavy to process. He called expert witnesses. A gender psychologist. When reality violates one's core sense of self, the brain can respond with violence, not out of hatred, but out of existential collapse. A trauma therapist. This wasn't hate. It was emotional implosion. The testimony. Marcus Patterson, Malik's best friend, took the stand. He cried while saying, Malik loved her. I saw it. He was planning new life. And then that life cracked in half. The outside the courthouse, vigils were held. Trans activists held signs. Her name was Isabel. Being yourself shouldn't get you killed. Love without fear. Counter-protesters came, too. He was lied to. This is deception, not justice. The country watched as one question echoed louder than any verdict. What defines truth in love? The The 911 recording. The most emotional moment came when the 911 call was played. In the background, picked up faintly by the dispatcher, was Malik's voice. I didn't want this. I didn't want this. But she lied. And I still loved her. God help me, I still loved her. Several jurors cried. But the DA stood firm. Love does not justify 6 bullets. The verdict. The jury deliberated 9 hours. They returned with their decision. Guilty. Second-degree murder. Sentencing. The judge was somber. You took a life built on courage and destroyed it because you were afraid of what that courage made you feel. Malik Carter was sentenced to 35 years in state prison, with no possibility of parole for the first 25. He didn't react. He stood, nodded once to the judge and whispered, "I'm sorry." Only the bailiff heard it. Later, a letter was added quietly to the case file. Written in Malik's hand from prison. "I didn't kill her because she was trans. I killed her because I was afraid. Afraid of how much I loved someone I didn't understand. And I hated myself more than I ever hated her." Redemption isn't freedom. Sometimes it's just learning how to carry the weight you created. It had been 3 years since the trial. 3 winters since Malik Carter became inmate number 76291 at Georgia State Penitentiary. No family visited. He never spoke to the press. Refused calls from podcasters, Netflix, even a book deal. The world had moved on. But Malik hadn't. He woke every day at 5:30 a.m. Didn't eat anything warm. Didn't sleep on the bunk. He laid his blanket on the cold concrete and stared at the ceiling. Not out of punishment, but penance. Because in the cold, he felt closer to her. He kept only 2 things in his cell. 1. A folded slip of paper, stained but intact. 2. A journal Isabel once wrote in. Inside, a pencil sketch of Malik at 17. On nights when he couldn't breathe, he read that note. "I forgive you. Even if you never forgive me." He didn't cry anymore. Tears were for people who still believed in salvation. He didn't. Not until one night. He asked the prison chaplain for a camera. "I want to record something," Malik said. "Not for the world. For her." The chaplain, an older man with patient eyes, nodded. They set it up in the prison library. No lights. No makeup. No script. Just Malik. An orange jumpsuit. A wooden chair. And the truth he had never said aloud. Movie camera final confession. The red light blinked on. He looked into the lens like he was facing God. If you're watching this, maybe you knew her. Maybe you didn't. But her name was Isabel Monroe. And I killed her. I thought I knew what it meant to be a man. To love. To protect. But the truth is, I was a coward. He took a breath. I didn't kill her because she was trans. I killed her because I couldn't handle loving someone who didn't fit the rules I was raised with. Rules I never questioned until it was too late. Isabel didn't deceive me. She survived me. Survived a world that told her she couldn't exist. And for one moment, I was the only one who made her feel safe. Then I destroyed that. People will argue whether it was a hate crime, whether it was betrayal, whether she should have told me sooner. But here's what I know. Love doesn't ask for permission. And when it shows up, different, messy, complicated, you either rise or you ruin it. He unfolded the note, held it up to the camera. She forgave me. Before I pulled the trigger. I didn't deserve it. But I carry it anyway. Because that's the only way I can survive now. He leaned forward, voice cracking. So if someone out there is hurting, Ashamed of who they love or who they are? Please, don't do what I did. Don't let fear kill something pure. Don't mistake your shame for truth. Is never a lie. He looked into the camera one last time. Her name was Isabel Monroe, and she deserved better than me. Video cassette, the video. It was uploaded quietly. No press release. No monetization. Just a single video titled, Final Confession, in memory of Isabel Monroe. The channel had 1 subscriber. The thumbnail was a photo from their wedding. She was looking at Malik, like she still believed in him. It didn't go viral, but it didn't need to, because the people who needed to find it, did. Two weeks later, the chaplain handed Malik a letter. No return address. Just a folded white envelope. Careful handwriting. To Mr. Malik Carter. Inside, I watched your video. I'm 19. I'm trans. My mom won't talk to me. My dad says I'm a disgrace. Last month, I almost ended it. But then I saw you. And for some reason, it made me feel like maybe I wasn't disgusting. Maybe someone who messed up could still speak truth. Thank you. You saved someone you'll never meet. J. Malik sat on his cot. Letter in his lap. Blanket at his feet. And for the first time in 3 years, he smiled. Not because he was forgiven, not because he was free, but because the truth, finally spoken, had done what he couldn't. Let someone else live. Dove epilogue. In the end, Malik Carter remained where justice said he belonged, behind bars. But his final words weren't a defense. They were a warning. If you don't understand something, don't fear it. If you don't understand someone, don't kill them. Sit with it. Or let it go. Because the truth isn't meant to break you. It's meant to set you free. If you let it,